Last of Us Season 2 was pretty bad, and just for context here, I have never played the video games before. I went into Season 1 completely blind, just knowing a few things here and there from just being on the internet and occasionally seeing things about The Last of Us, and I quite enjoyed Season 1. I thought it was pretty good. I don't know how faithful it was to the original video game, but to be quite honest, I do not care. I thought it was enjoyable, and I was relatively excited for this season, which unfortunately did not deliver. Let's start with the positives first before I get into airing my grievances with this series. And as far as the positives go, I think the story, just looking at the synopsis, if we are completely ignoring the execution, if you just told me what the main ideas were for this season, I think they had quite good material to work with. Although I already knew that, as John Cena put it, Joel was going to be compromised to a permanent end, I thought that was a very interesting idea. Removing one of your main characters can have a lot of shock value and can have a long-lasting emotional impact on your other main characters if you know what you're doing. To go from Season 1, where you had these two strangers bonding and making a family in the middle of all this horror, and to go from something that is quite wholesome, to then in Season 2 to go for a revenge storyline where the main protagonist is darker and evil and is succumbing to her darkest wishes and is almost becoming the villain of her own story, I think that is quite a daring choice, and I was greatly interested in seeing that. Having seen the season, I also enjoyed a lot of new plot elements they added. For example, the main conflict between the Wolves militia and the evil cult. And for people that know me, you know that I have quite a soft spot for cults as villains. I think they are always tremendous villains when done well, so I greatly enjoyed that. And I also think some of the episodes were very dark and very thought-provoking, especially the last one. It had quite a dark moment, which I think was underexplored and underutilized because of the bad things in this show. So I think they had a lot of gold on their hands for this season, and instead of delivering it to us, they instead gave us copper or wood, or some would even say poop, which is not very nice. Let's start right away with my main problem with this season is that it has no idea what it's trying to be. And if someone told me that there were two different crews and two different directors, one shooting the action and more emotional scenes and the other shooting everything else, and they did not communicate with each other at all, honestly, I would believe you, because this season feels like it has schizophrenia and it's very, very strange. Storytelling needs an ebb and flow. You can't be always giving action scenes or you devalue the action, you need a little bit of rest in between. You can always be having romantic scenes or else it's just melodramatic and everything starts falling apart. You need a little bit of substance to make the romance mean something, and I get that sometimes you need to have a little bit more calm moments, more action-oriented moments, you need a bit of an ebb and flow, that is fine. However, sometimes you cannot go too far on each direction, because when you take two almost subgenres which are diametrically opposed, you end up with a story that is almost conflicting with itself, and you end up undermining both aspects of the story you're trying to tell. More specifically, this season seems to want to replicate the wholesome vibe it had in Season 1 with Dina and Ellie, but they're a bit too over the top with it, where sometimes, even though they are in a quest for revenge and it's supposed to be this dark, heavy thing that's looming over their minds, sometimes it seems like they're just going to a party, like it's hot girl summer and we're going to Ibiza, I'm so excited! What? It's a very strange mix where every single time that Ellie and Dina are by themselves and there are no enemies around, it feels like they're in a completely different series. The direction for this is just so strange because it makes them not look like a threat at all. It almost makes the viewer forget why they're here in the first place. It just looks like two friends having an adventure, and then not only does it make these moments feel a little bit cheap because they're a bit too forced, but also then the action scenes, the intimate moments, the sad moments feel cheapened because we just had this sort of rom-com right before it. This brings me to my next complaint, which is I hate Ellie. She is just so annoying, and I would love to hate Ellie if she were portrayed as a more villainous, vindictive, manipulative character. Maybe that would have been a super fun twist for her character. I would have enjoyed to hate her, if that makes sense, but she's just plain annoying. Her being annoying in season 1 was almost endearing, not only because she was a sort of counterbalance to Joel, who was more stoic and serious, and so she brought a bit of joy, almost childish joy, to the series, and I think they both worked well off each other very well. They were amusing, and her being annoying, as I said, was endearing, it was wholesome, it was fine. But here, there is no stoic Joel to be a counterbalance. Instead, you have Dina, who is more of an enabler than anything, and secondly, and most important, Ellie is not a child anymore. She was supposed to be 14 in season 1, and yes, physically speaking, there is absolutely no difference. That's a bit jarring, but whatever, I can deal with it. I can use my suspension of disbelief, that is fine. But she was supposed to be 14 in the first season, she is now supposed to be 19, and I don't think there is anything that Ellie in season 1 would have done that this Ellie would not have done. Her character has not grown, she has not matured in any way, so what came off as a lonely child's tantrum before now just comes off as being immature and childish and just plain annoying. Now, to be perfectly clear, and I know some people are going to say I'm sitting on a fence here or whatever, but there were some very nasty comments towards the actress which I do not endorse or approve of in any way. I don't know if she is necessarily the best possible casting you could have had for this. I think that's a tough sell. However, I genuinely believe that with this script and this direction and these sometimes very goofy lines and very goofy moments, there was a moment where they were having this emotional discussion and all of a sudden they just break out into making love, and she was still infected and she was doing the thing with the fingers, which I'm sure you all know about, you're adults, you've seen it before or done it or perhaps experienced it in some way, I hope. And I was watching this with my wife and we just looked at each other like, not only was the moment in itself very poorly directed, very jarring, very all over the place. Once again, this season is very schizophrenic, but also just some hygiene. Guys, please, I don't want to be the one giving you sex ed over here, but do it safely, do it cleanly, clean yourself before you go on such perilous endeavors. Like I was saying, I don't think any single actress could have saved this. I think everything around it, the script, the direction was just way too bad for it to ever work, and I'm even more confused because this did not adapt the whole game, so there's still a season 3 and it's going to be a while before we get it, and after this very sloppy season, I'm just thinking, haven't they just completely tanked the interest in this? I think they should have made a full season even if it took longer to produce, but this way is just, I think that train has set. I don't think it's coming back. I think this was it, because I saw that a lot of people, including myself, were very disappointed in this season, and honestly, with good reason to be, because I think this had potential to be very good. So TLDW, this could have been good, but it was bad, and now I'm sad. For those who usually watch this channel, don't worry, this is not me branching out, this is merely taking a small detour and I will be back to the regular programming on the next video. Until then, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, leave your thoughts below if you watched Last of Us Season 2. Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Did you also not like it as I did? Be sure to leave it in the comments and see you guys in the next video. Ciao!